Morning. Hi, it's Bodhi here. So it's day 20 of my sort of compassionate response or attempt to respond to the coronavirus crisis. And so this week I've had different themes through the week. So this week has been looking at the different aspects of mindfulness. The Buddhist. The Buddha's take on mindfulness, taken from the Satipatthana Sutta. And yesterday I was looking at mind, or chitta. So mind in Buddhism, it includes the emotions, and it includes attention, it includes thinking. So doing these sessions, I was sort of thinking that it's hard. I was sort of thinking about, I've kind of committed myself to doing these endlessly now, And if the crisis lasts 6 months in the UK, how do I keep going for that time? I had the thought the other day of maybe I should have some days off, maybe every 3 weeks have 3 days off or something, But I'm a bit torn about that because if you're an abbot in a Zen monastery, you don't have any days off. It's just the same every day. And I remember in my ordination training, part of that was saying that there are no holidays in the spiritual life. So in a way, we're still there with the same situation. It's not like the people in the NHS having any days off, is it? So so I'm just going to carry on. And I think what this forces one to do is to access resources, keep accessing deeper resources. What do I need at the moment, to keep going? And so I've been doing quite a lot of leading meditation and relaxations and bodywork and things like that. And I was planning on doing more of that this morning, so doing a lying down relaxation and some meditation. But what came up for me really was I thought, actually, I need some inspiration or something, So in the NHS, people which is the health service in the UK, people will be kind of probably getting access to things like meditation apps to try and keep them going, and they'll be learning, body scan and relaxations and all that sort of stuff. And it's like I think religion has something to offer. So particularly the altruistic Buddhism of Mahayana Buddhism that the Dalai Lama's into, or that whole tradition. So what I thought I'd do would be to read some verses from a text, a devotional text from Mahayana Buddhism, something called the Bodhicaryavatara. So here's my copy. It's covered in gold cloth, and Bodhicaryavatara, world classic. And here's some Tibetan teachers that I feel inspired by. I can't get used to this. And this is this list. The list. I can't do this. It's in mirror image. The list is Anyway, I've got the 10 precepts, which is what the 10 ethical training principles that people take up on ordination. So I'm committed to doing practicing loving kindness, generosity, stillness, simplicity and contentment, truthful speech, kind speech, helpful speech, harmonious speech, so not slagging other people off, and then the mind and emotions, tranquility rather than covetousness, compassion rather than hatred, and wisdom rather than having deluded views about things. So these are the sort of things that that the Bodhisattva. So Bodhisattva just means enlightenment being, which is the altruistic Buddhist in archetypal kind of symbolism. This is what we're trying to do, and those people working in the front line, are doing this. They're doing all of that. They're putting their energy into helping others, and so I just thought that I would try and help them by reading this verse, because it's completely in line with what they're doing. It's almost like their mantra, their manifesto, even. And I'm hoping to get these videos out beyond kind of limited kind of Buddhist community or whatever. So I'm hoping that people will read this or listen to it. So this is what a person, an enlightened being, someone who's attained nirvana or who is very close to it, thinks like. May the merit gained in my acting thus, means what they've done they're doing in their life, go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. May I be medicine for the sick. May I be their physician and their nurse, until sickness is no more. May I destroy the torments of hunger and thirst with rains of food and drink, and in the aeons when there is no food, may I myself be food and water. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. May I be their servant to give them all that they need. My personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit in all three ways, I give up without regard to myself, for the benefit of all beings. Nirvana is the giving up of all, and it is nirvana that my heart yearns for. If I am to give up everything, then let me give it to beings. Let me give my body to them, to do with as they wish, to strike, to abuse. Let them play with it, laugh at it. I have given my body to them. Why should I care what they do with it? Let them do what they like. Whatever brings them pleasure, but let them suffer no misfortune because of me. Let them hate me, let them love me, but whatever their feeling for me, let it bring about all that they desire. Let them wrong me, let them mock me, let them accuse me falsely, but let them share in enlightenment. I would be a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who wander, a boat, a bridge, a causeway for those who long for the other shore. For all beings, I would be a lamp for those needing a lamp, a bed for those needing a bed, a slave for those desiring a slave. For all beings, I would be a wish-fulfilling gem, an inexhaustible vase, a magic spell, a wishing tree, a cow of plenty. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings, situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace. as the Buddhas of ancient times grasped this Bodhi heart and followed resolutely the practice of the Bodhisattva path, so shall I awaken this precious heart for the welfare of the world. And I too shall follow that path in all its fullness. And like a wise man who joyfully seizes that Bodhi heart, I shall rejoice so that it will grow and thrive in me. Today my birth has borne fruit, and my humanity has been fulfilled. Today I am reborn in the Buddha family, and I am now a son or daughter of the Buddha, and now I must live up to my birth, and by my actions must place no stain on that spotless family. Just as a blind man may find by chance a priceless jewel in a heap of refuse, so somehow this Bodhi spirit is hidden, even in me. It is the elixir of life, which destroys death, the destroyer of all, a limitless treasure to destroy all poverty, the supreme cure for the world's sickness. It is a tree of rest for the wearied world, wandering on the road of being. It is a bridge for all travellers, passing over the waters of suffering. It is the heart's waxing moon, cooling the heat of passion. It is a great sun, dispelling the darkness of the world's ignorance. It is fresh butter, churned from the milk of the true Dharma. For the caravan of famished beings, blundering on the road of existence, it is a banquet of joy which refreshes completely all who hunger for happiness. Today I invite the world to Buddhahood and to all the happiness of the Dharma. May God's Titans and all rejoice. So those verses were written by a Buddhist in about 1200 years ago, but I think they're just relevant for whatever your faith is, or lack of, or kind of whatever you believe, because we all have this resonance with others. If we really kind of look into our hearts and minds, we all have a moral compass within, as Immanuel Kant said, that just as we all look up at the sky and see the stars, we look inside and we see this. We know what's right, So that verse, I think, really helps me to keep going and to think, exchange myself for others. Not worry too much about what's happening for me. And how can I be of help, that sort of thing. So okay, so what we're going to do now is to do some relaxation from the Alexander technique. So what you're going to need is like a pile of books, maybe about that thick, something like that, or a cushion to lay, but fairly firm cushion to lay your head on. So if you find that now, and then we're going to meditate after that. So find a chair to meditate on, or meditation cushions. Okay, so alright, so finding a pile of books. Oops. Oh, no. Okay, so I'll just say a little bit about the Alexander technique before we start. So it was invented by an Australian actor called F.M. Alexander, and basically the story is that he kept losing his voice when he was on stage, and which is really not a good idea if you're an actor. But he had this kind of probably a bit of a scientific, curious mind, and what he did was he started to kind of like look at his own body and what he was doing with it, and and to sort of see if there's anything that he might do. And anyway, to cut a long story short, he solved the problem by coming up with what came to be called the Alexander technique. So in the Alexander technique, the principle that he points to is that if you look at children and animals, they move in this very kind of natural way. So they've not learned any bad habits that we as adults have all picked up by forcing our body into unnatural positions, sit up straight, and we just kind of we're not using it in the way that it's designed to be used. So he just looked at how is the body designed to be? Was it designed to be used? And can we do that? Can we sort of inhibit ourselves from doing these unhelpful things that we're sort of superimposing on top of what's the truth about the body? So in these sessions, I have emphasised a lot the whole thing of like just letting our body just naturally sit there in meditation, not forcing it to do anything, but just letting it, the structure of the body, support the weight. So this is very much comes from Alexander technique. So basically, if we're trying to do something, then often we tense up in the readiness to do it. So if we're trying to do relaxation, it's counterproductive. It's like we tense up ready to do relaxation. So what he came up with was like we need to just send suggestions to ourselves. So the most important joint in the body is at the top of the neck, where the head balances on the spine. With that joint, he would say, may that joint be free to move. So just sending an idea to that place, but very lightly, and just making the suggestion, but then inhibiting himself from doing anything about it. So it's just an idea, may it be free to move, so that the head can rise upwards and point slightly forwards, the neck can release, and the back can become longer and wider. So keep making these suggestions to ourselves, may that joint be free to move, so the head can rise up, and inhibit ourselves from doing anything about it. Then it's almost like the body starts to kind of regain its natural poise. And he said that a long muscle is a relaxed muscle, so we're looking for lengthening in all the dimensions of the body. So what I'm going to do is just lead us in a relaxation based on the Alexander technique. So if you get your pile of books, here I've got The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins, Unweaving the Rainbow, and all that sort of thing, which I have something to say about. Anyway, I'd like to say something about it. And I've got Vision and Transformation by Sangharakshita. So just put your pile of books on the floor and be laying on a mat or something that's not too hard. And first of all, just resting, have your knees pointing up towards the ceiling, and then just like resting on your elbows. So what we're looking to do here is just allow the weight of our spine to kind of pull it down towards the ground, and it will just naturally be lengthening as in this position. So again, just waiting for something to happen. We often have to wait. then just feeling your knees rising up towards the ceiling. Your feet kind of planted firmly on the ground, just being aware of the sensations in your feet as they touch the ground. What are the sensations? Can you spot the points of contact between your feet and the ground? So probably the ball of your foot and your toes are making some sort of shape, and the heel of your foot is making some sort of shape, and the base of your spine and your lower back are making some sort of shape on the ground. And being aware of your clothes touching your skin and how that feels, and the air touching your skin. And being aware of the world outside, the very quiet world these days outside. It may be like, rather than kind of feeling that all this quietness is a bit kind of unsettling, you know. Maybe try to start to enjoy it, really. So this period of enforced quietness and some solitude, we need to sort of turn it into something productive. Because in a way, the world economy is paying for it, you know. We'll have to earn the money back that we're spending now by staying in, so might as well make the most of it. If we're wise, I think. And then just unfurling your spine along the ground, just very gradually. And then what I want you to do is to just balance your head on the books, not your neck. So don't have your neck supported. So there's just a bony part of the back of your head supported by the books. And then you can either have your hands just resting down by your sides, or you can put them onto your rib cage, or onto your hips. Just make your own decision about that, what feels most comfortable. And anyone out there with physical injuries or problems like that need to be kind of taken into account, please take those into account. And just whatever you're doing with any kind of body work, just decide when you've had enough and then do something else different. So I'm just going to go through some of the directions that Alexander suggested, and with each one I'm going to say what that is, and then ask you to inhibit yourself from doing anything about it. So the first direction is may the joint at the top of my spine be free to move. So again, inhibiting yourself, stopping yourself from actually doing anything about that, just having that thought, may that joint be free to move. Allowing my head to move up and away from my spine, and my neck to release, and my back to become longer and wider. Go and say it again. So may that joint be free to move, so that my head can move up and away from my spine, so that my neck can release, and my back can become longer and wider. And just keep being aware of the imprint that your body's making on the ground, and feeling the hardness of the ground pressing up against your body, having a sense of just allowing that hardness to support your weight, so that your muscles can just soften and fall away, any tension just falling away, any holding on just falling away towards the ground. So once more, with that joint, may that joint be free to move at the top of the spine, so that head can move up and away from the spine, neck release and back become longer and wider. So now just imagining a line that runs between your left knee and your right shoulder. Just an imaginary line between those 2 points, your left knee and your right shoulder, and just sending the suggestion that that line could become longer, again without doing anything about it. So that's from the left knee to the right shoulder. And then the same on the other side, line between the left shoulder and the right knee. May it become longer, that line. And inhibiting ourselves from doing anything about that. And then taking your attention, imagining a triangle between your right earlobe, the centre of your chest, and your right shoulder. And while keeping your face relaxed, just sending that suggestion that the sides of the triangle just become longer. The centre of your chest, your right shoulder, right earlobe. And then the other side, centre of your chest, your left earlobe, your left shoulder. May the sides of the triangle become longer. And then taking your attention down into your hip joints and your ankle joints and your knee joints. And just sending the suggestion that all those joints are free to move, so that your knees just naturally rise up towards the ceiling with a minimum of effort. while inhibiting yourself from doing anything about that. So that's hip joints, ankle joints and knee joints. May they be free to move. See knees just rise up towards the ceiling without very much effort at all, minimum of effort. Then taking your attention to your shoulder joints. May your shoulder joints be free to move. So that your arms can extend away from your shoulders and become longer. So again, inhibit yourself from doing anything about it, just having that idea. May the shoulder joints be free to move so that the arms can extend away from the shoulders, lengthening. And may my elbow joints be free to move so that my lower arms can extend away from my elbows, lengthening. May my wrists be free to move so that my hands can extend away from my wrists, lengthening. May the joints of my fingers be free to move so that my fingers can move away from my hands, lengthening. And going back to the first and most important joint in the body, which is where the head meets the top of the spine. So may that joint be free to move so that the head can rise up and away from the neck, and the neck can release and the back become longer and wider. So again, just coming back to experiencing the hardness of the ground on your body, pushing up against your body. Just really letting your bones take the weight of your body, just let the flesh fall away, just relaxing away from the bones, softening, and then the tensions just falling away towards the ground. Okay, so we're now going to, in a mindful way, move from this position into our meditation posture. And so the idea in moving from here to there is that we try and keep this sense of lengthening and spaciousness in the joints. So the relationship between our neck, head and back, trying to keep that the same as what it is now. So just have this sense of an arrow pointing upwards, lifting the crown of your head in that direction. So first of all, we're going to just turn onto one side, like left or right, just make a decision and just roll onto that side. And just carry the rest of your head on the books. And this is just to allow the blood to recirculate a little bit. So just resting our head on the books and not doing anything. Just waiting. As I've said lots of times this week about just giving the body enough time to do for something to happen. It works in a slower way than the mind, so we have to give it time. If we're trying to relax, we need to just give our body enough time to do that. And now just kind of carry on rolling over in the same direction so that you end up on all fours. So just and keeping this relationship between your head, neck and back as it was when you were lying down on the books, with your head on the books. Just getting used to this position now. And then just begin to walk your hands backwards so that you end up kind of sitting on your heels, that sort of thing. Again, just keep your head, neck and back in the same relationship. And then keeping this relationship between your head, neck and back, just moving very mindfully of your body and setting up your meditation cushions or chair, whatever you're going to sit on. But don't pull your body about, just let it be move in a balanced and poised kind of way. Or do your best with that anyway. So we're just going to carry on doing these directions in this new position. So again, take your attention to the top of your neck, where the head rests on the top of your spine. So without doing anything about it, just having the idea that that joint is free to move, so that your head can rise up towards the ceiling, pointing slightly forward, and so that your neck can release and your back become longer and wider. While inhibiting yourself from doing anything about it. And taking your attention to your hip joints. May your hip joints be free to move, so that your legs can extend away out of your hip joints, lengthening. May my knee joints be free to move, so that my lower legs can extend away from my knees, lengthening. My ankles free to move, so that my feet can move away from my ankles, lengthening. My joints in my toes be free to move, so that my toes can move away from my feet, lengthening. My shoulder joints be free to move, so that my arms can extend away from my shoulders, lengthening. My elbows free to move, so that my lower arms can extend away from my elbows, lengthening. My wrists free to move, so that my hands can move away from my wrists, lengthening. My finger joints be free to move so that my fingers can extend away from my hands, lengthening. Imagining a line between my left knee and right shoulder. May the line become longer. Imagining a line between my left shoulder and right knee. May the line become longer. Imagining a triangle between the centre of my chest, my right earlobe and right shoulder. May the sides of the triangle become longer. While inhibiting myself from doing anything about that. Imagining a triangle between the centre of my chest, my left shoulder and left earlobe. May the sides of the triangle become longer. Imagining a line between my temples. May the line become longer. So for the last little bit of the meditation, just start to notice your breathing, the sensations of your breath as the air passes your mouth, the opening of your mouth, your lips and your nose. And just watch those like little kind of delicate sensations that are there in that area for a few minutes. Having a sense of an arrow from the crown of your head pointing up towards the ceiling or the sky, just maybe like tilted slightly forward. And an arrow at the base of your spine pointing down towards the earth, centre of the earth. Without doing anything about that, just have that idea. And being aware of your hands and your feet and your face, which have the most nerve endings in your body, because you're always expressing things and manipulating objects. So just have a sense that all that sensitivity in your hands, face and feet just starts to soften, quieten down. So we don't need to be expressing anything to the world, we don't need to be using our hands for anything, or we're not walking anywhere. Just let the metabolism of our hands, feet and face just quieten down. And now just bringing meditation to an end in your own time. Maybe have a little stretch round to the side. Look out at the world. Or yawn, something. Okay, so I'm just going to carry the tripod through to the kitchen, and we'll just have a little, not very much of the theory stuff today, but just a little bit of it. I think we lost the signal there for a minute. Okay, so through this week I've been looking at the four aspects of the human being, which are called the four foundations of mindfulness. In a way, these make up the whole person. Body, which is our physical experience, but also, like, in a way, you could say all the bodies in the world, things out there, tangible experience. Feeling, which is just not emotions, but it's just the experience of pleasure or pain. You know, so we can have feeling that's coming from our body, or when we hurt our hand or something. Feeling that comes from our mind when we have a thought and it's unpleasant, or like if we think, oh, I'm a failure or something. That's a feeling. It's painful. Or feeling that comes from our mental states. Where we have a guilty conscience, or we just want something and we're a bit addicted to it. So it's painful when we don't get it. So in earlier days, I've been talking about all this, and yesterday I began talking about the mind. So mind here is chitta. So the verse I was talking about, I read out earlier, was referring to something called the bodhicitta. So bodhicitta means enlightenment mind. So it's not just mind; but chitta is heart-mind in a way. It's our heart and our thoughts and our attention. So those verses, those like very beautiful, evocative verses that are all about wanting to just help all beings everywhere. You know, beings in hell realms, and beings in addictive states, and even beings in the God realms. You know, beings that are just really got everything going well, because there's a problem with that, because you get used to it and things are impermanent. So you know, people who are having a really consistently, you know, happy time and successful and all that sort of thing, you know, it ends in the end. So all whatever states that we're in, there's you know, we have further to go, really. So we either can try and get ourselves out of those hellish states where we're just suffering all the time. We can try and get ourselves out of addictive states where we're obsessed with things, or we can get ourselves out of states where everything's just about survival. So that's you know, that's like the animal realm, the realm of survival of the fittest and all that. You know, and you know, try and get out of that, and so that life isn't just about survival, but there's some quality there in it as well. You know, so the Buddha went in the animal realm. Has a book. He's like teaching something. He's giving some knowledge, something that's actually useful to get us out of just survival. And then there's a human realm, which is like where you've got pleasure and pain are kind of balanced. It's not all pleasure, it's not all pain. It's a mixture of the two, kind of woven together, they say. You know. So yeah, in a way, it's the most realistic place. It's giving us the most realistic idea of how things are. Yeah. So I was talking about bodhicitta, wasn't I? So this altruistic state of mind, where everything's conditioning is working towards conditioning that, you know. So how does the body condition an awakening mind? Well, if we really work with our body all the time, and we keep it buoyant and relaxed and energized. I mean, last night I'm a bit of a fan of the freezing cold bath after a hot bath. So it's a bit like jumping in a hole in the ice thing in Sweden, you know. So, and Tony Robbins, who's a kind of well-known new agey kind of inspirational speaker, he has this machine that goes down to minus 100 and odd degrees centigrade, which he gets into for like 3 seconds, you know. But it's like I did it last night. I was laying in a cold bath for 55, a count of 55, and it's like, woof, that's enough, you know. But it really helped me have a good night's sleep, and then I've got up and I feel a lot brighter, and I can teach in it well and all that sort of thing. So if we can really look after our body and work on what we pay attention to. So I talked earlier in the week about this being conditioning our attention, so we can be concentrating. We can concentrate on things effectively. Yeah. So if we're going to save the world in inverted commas, if we're going to really help people, we need to have that kind of stability and support from our body and our mind as well. Is really focused, and it's not just wandering off in a vague sort of way, you know. So if we're going to be on the front line against the virus, you know, it's going to really help us the more we support ourselves with that, with our body, with our attention. We do meditation that focuses our attention, and that you know, stops us being distracted. So that's the body. and then feeling, conditioning, an awakening mind. So in a way, feeling, the effect of feeling on mind is emotion. So it's like our emotions are just completely up and running, you know. So in those verses, it's like those verses are completely emotional. It's like, you know, may I be medicine for the sick, may I, you know, be their physician and their nurse until sickness is no more, you know. And it's a bit like, some of the verses are very extreme and they're deliberately like that. So the Shantideva talks about even if people judge me harshly, accuse me falsely, you know, like kind of you know, say things that aren't true about me, I'm not going to let that distract me from helping them, you know. So I'm going to keep on helping them, even though whatever they're doing to me, I'm not going to give up on them just because they're doing that, you know. So I find that fantastically kind of inspiring, and you know, and it's like, so we never stop for any reason. And the other day I was talking about the higher states of consciousness called dhyana, and in the fourth dhyana you've got equanimity, and in a way equanimity is about being completely skillful all the time, just doing what you can to help the world, but you're not distracted by pleasure or pain, you know. So when things are too difficult, you don't give up. When you're getting loads of compliments, you don't get distracted by those compliments, you know, and get, oh, I'm really great, I'm really sort of fantastic person, you know. So Shantideva keeps sort of going, no, you know, it's not about me, it's about others, you know, it's about what needs to happen for others, and I'm not going to stop and think about myself and how I'm doing and all that sort of thing. So it's like humility is just there, you know, kind of keep going, do what you can, don't think of yourself, you know, just think of others. And so those verses are about that. So it's like you're dedicating your life and practice to helping others. And then finally, my arrow's somewhere, hang on. Yeah, so finally you've got how views affect the mind. So this how views affect the mind is basically, the mind is forced to think by there being different views in the world. So if our thoughts are all about clarifying what needs to happen, if we're going to help all beings, if we're going to turn this into bodhicitta, not just chitta, then it's like our views need to be kind of come closer and closer to what we call right view. So right view is what the Buddha has about life, and sometimes it's talked about as you know, kind of seeing things as they really are, and I think people can often just sort of think of this a bit in terms of like, seeing that things are impermanent, seeing that there's suffering in life, seeing that there's no fixed self, those sorts of ideas, you know. But I think right view is very much about seeing that everything is about is about living beings, you know. So these are views about beings. It's not abstract, it's not philosophical. It's like the view that it is really important to look after beings. So if we have the view that it's really important to look after beings, then we will want to look after beings, which is our emotions, you know. If we don't have that view, if we think, you know, the world will look after itself, then we're not going to actually do anything very much. So the world won't look after itself. The world has to be looked after by human beings doing something. So right view is always, Buddhism is what's called a soteriology, which means it's about overcoming suffering and bringing about happiness. It's sometimes talked about as salvation without a saviour. So it's like we kind of it's about the problem of the problems of being alive and how you solve that. So it's about living beings. It's all about living beings. Okay, so yeah, I'm really pleased that I had the thought this morning to talk about the Bodhicaryavatara, because I think this is like this is so kind of needed really in people who are on the front line and just need to know that the Buddhism is really behind them, what they're doing, and that they could access these verses if they want. And what I'll do is I'll put on the website, on the Facebook Live thing, a copy of the verses, so you can read them yourself and pass them on to anybody that you think that might benefit from them, and they can look at this video. And so that's all for today. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow, which is day 21. Ooh. Okay, see ya.